Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday webinar. Today, we are going to be covering editing and maintaining system emails and notifications. So people will probably still be trailing in. We'll go through a little bit of housekeeping first, and then we will dive into our topic. So to start off, all of your microphones are muted. So if you have any questions about today's topic, be sure to enter them into the chat window. So that chat feature is what you were using to introduce yourself at the top of our webinar. Devin, one of our favorite ClubExpress team members, is hanging out in the chat, and he is going to be answering your questions. We'll also, as I said, have time at the end of our session for some Q&A. A recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel by the end of this week or early next week, so be sure to check that out. All of our upcoming webinars are listed out on our website. So if you go to clubexpress.com/calendar, or if you just go to clubexpress.com, click that calendar option on the menu, you can see all of our upcoming webinars. Some of those are going to be our sales department hosting overview webinars. So if you have any fellow clubs that might be interested in switching over or at least exploring the idea of ClubExpress, we have a lot of overviews that are designed to just, let people pop in and learn a little bit more about our software. We also have our education webinars coming up. All of our training webinars are listed on our calendar. You'll notice that at the end of this month, we are hosting Getting Started with Google Analytics. So there are a lot of clubs that are always asking questions about Google Analytics and how it works. So we're going to help you get that set up. And we're going to give you just a very basic tour of how Google Analytics works, where you can find some of the metrics that people usually are looking for when they are setting up their account for the first time. So if you're interested in getting started with Google Analytics, or even if you're already using it and you want to see if there's any more information you can pick up, be sure to register for that in advance. You don't have to register in advance, but it gets it on your calendar. And when you register for all of our webinars through the event calendar, you have the ability to add in a question in advance, one or more. You can enter as many as you'd like, so that we can get an idea of things that you might want to see specifically in those webinars. So I encourage you to go to that page, take a look at those upcoming webinars and check it periodically. If there's a topic that you're really interested in and you'd like to see something specific to your organization demonstrated in that webinar, we can certainly try and fit that in and make sure that the webinar is really useful to our attendees. Next up, of course, as we mentioned, this particular webinar and all of our webinars and tutorials are hosted on our YouTube channel. So if you search for clubexpress.com with the dot and com spelled out, you can find our entire channel. You can hit that subscribe button. Of course, it is not just so we get extra followers. It's so that you get notified whenever we post a new tutorial or webinar. Speaking of which, you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. We post a lot of updates there as well, and we spotlight and highlight other clubs that are working with ClubExpress. So it gives you a chance to see what other organizations might be doing with their site, maybe give you some ideas as well. And of course, if you are using ClubExpress, and especially if you are enjoying ClubExpress, and even if you're not, we would love to hear from you. If you go to clubexpress.com/reviews, you can leave us a review on any of the sites that we have listed there. Your reviews will help us learn what we're doing well and what we can improve on. And it also helps potential future ClubExpress customers decide if ClubExpress is right for them. So getting real experience and real insight from real customers is super important. I know that I use it all the time when I'm shopping on Amazon. So shopping for software is no different. So we encourage you to leave us a review and help other people potentially find a software that works best for them. Now, without further ado, why everyone showed up today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to go ahead and dive right into our topic. So first up, let's give an overview of what we're talking about when we talk about system emails and system notifications. I want to just give us a roadmap of where we're going to go today and where we're not going to go. So let's talk about those system emails. System emails are those automatic boilerplate emails that get sent to members, non-members, even administrators and coordinators when they're prompted by an action that they take on the site. So for example, when someone signs up for a new membership, when they purchase something from the storefront, when they fill out a survey, those are user generated actions that then trigger a system email, a boilerplate email that's usually a confirmation email, an email confirming an action or a transaction or a payment. Users cannot opt out of system emails. So that's a really big difference between system emails and blast emails, among many other differences. Your blast emails are those emails that you're going into the emailing module and creating, likely with a lot of pictures, maybe a few links here and there. Those are going to be the emails that you use for your newsletters or your announcements from your board or announcements about events. All of our system emails are transaction-based emails. Those are emails that legally the user cannot opt out of, especially as most of them might contain financial information, confirming a payment or confirming that a payment is due. And those system emails can be edited, which is, of course, what we're going to go over today. Now, system notifications, slightly different, but a very similar concept. So those are automatic boilerplate notifications that get sent to your club and association officers. So when you think about the treasurer getting an email every time someone makes a payment, that would be a system notification. Or if you are the contact person for a survey, you might get an email when a survey is completed or when an ad hoc form is submitted. When you're configuring events, your event contact might get a system notification when someone registers for the event or when they cancel registration. So those, again, are triggered by a user interaction with your site. So all of these system notifications and emails are only sent based on an action. Now, the system notifications, the recipient is determined by an administrator, by someone who is setting up these contacts within your website. So someone is setting up or configuring your organization's membership director so that the system knows who to send those emails to. You are configuring your event contact, your survey contact, your volunteering contact. Those are people that you decide will get those notifications. And what aren't we covering today? We aren't covering blast emails. Those are a separate animal, separate can of worms. We have plenty of tutorials on our YouTube channel that cover blast emails. And of course, we'll be doing refresher webinars as time goes on. So take a peek at those. But for today, we are covering system emails. We'll talk about all of the ways that you can configure them. We'll go over some very, very important and frequently asked questions about system emails. So let's go ahead and talk about our demo. We're going to go ahead and start editing some individual system emails. We'll see how we edit those, what we can change, and what we can't change. We'll configure our email send options. So one of our most recent updates included the ability to edit that from name that you might see in your system emails. Now, previously, you had the ability to edit the from name of blast emails. Now you have the ability to do that with system emails as well. So that helps combat a lot of spam filters catching emails. It also helps your users recognize who the email is coming from. So it's your club's address or your association's address as opposed to something having the ClubExpress domain in it. So it increases the recognizability of your emails. We'll talk about using tags. So we're going to talk about what a tag is, how you can use them in your emails, what you can do with them. We'll, of course, go over testing all of your emails, and we'll talk about a new feature that we've added where you can track your system emails. So when you're sending out all of those payment reminders, all of those renewal reminders, or you're not sending them out, rather the system is sending them out, you're able to track and see who's opened those, who hasn't opened those. So it gives you that extra layer of comfort in knowing that your communications are being received and being read. And then we will talk about how you set up those officer notifications. So let's go ahead, and I've switched over to a different tab here, and we're going to go right back into our control panel. And we're going to talk about a couple of different places that we're going to be navigating to today. I am currently in my communications tab, and communications is where everything email related is going to be. At the very bottom, we have email accounts, we have system emails, we also have some additional options. And then in that website module section is where you're going to see blast emailing. Again, we aren't covering blast emailing today. We are focusing on the system emails, which are located in the setup section of the communications tab in your website's control panel. Now, if you aren't seeing this option, it might be because you're a coordinator and you don't necessarily have the rights to manage or edit those system emails. A full website administrator will be able to manage everything. Now, if you feel like you should be able to edit those system emails and perhaps you don't have the ability to, what you can do is contact your club or association website administrator and ask them to give you access to system emails. So let's go ahead and take a peek at system emails and see what this screen looks like for us. I'm on our demo club and I'm logged in as an administrator. So of course, I have the ability to see everything. Now, at the very top, we have some instructions that will help you see, what all of these icons mean. It'll help you figure out what everything on your screen is seeing. Let's go through this. In our list of emails, and we're going to come back to these buttons that you see at the top, in our list of emails, and there are a lot of emails. You'll see that they are conveniently in alphabetical order. In bold, you'll see the title of that email. That's just letting you know very quickly what that email is for. Underneath that title, that gray text is actually really, really helpful. It gives you a really good idea or an actual idea of when that email is going to be sent and what triggers that email. So if you're ever confused as to, when is someone going to get that mid-year notification email? When is someone going to get that event creation email? All of that is going to be available for you in this particular section. Now, you might also see on your page of system emails a lot of emails that look like they have nothing to do with your organization. You may not be using classified ads. You may not be using ad hoc forms. You may not be using guest passes. If we scroll down just a little bit more, maybe, you're not really using volunteering. Any emails that might show up for you for a module that you may not be actively using, you don't have to worry about those emails. Again, these emails are system emails that are generated based on a user action. So if you never have users interacting with ad hoc forms or classified ads, those emails are never going to get sent out. So in addition to the left-hand side where we have our name and description of the email, we have a handful of columns on the right-hand side. You'll see that we have customized the from email and then our trusty maintain column. And of course, with our maintain column, with every maintain column across our site, we have a small legend at the top right-hand corner. Most of the icons tend to be pretty self-explanatory. And if you hover over the icon, you get a short tooltip that shows you what that does. You also have a legend. If you hover over this icon in the maintain column, you can see a legend of all of the icons that you might see. And this is true with every maintain column that you'll see across our site. So if you're ever in doubt, go ahead and hover over that icon. So in our customized column, if you're familiar with editing system emails already, that green check mark, old news to you. That green check mark has not changed. And what that means is that the email, the content of the email has been edited by someone, an administrator, a coordinator, someone who has access to system emails. And it also means that the edited version is what's currently being sent to your members. Now, there are a couple of things to note about that green check mark. First, how do we get the green check mark? Well, if we select the pencil icon in any one of these rows and we make changes and save those changes, which of course we'll get to, we'll get that green check mark. With the green check mark, you'll see there's also a trash can icon in each of the rows that have that customization. That trash can icon only appears when you've made a change, and that trash can icon doesn't delete the email. It's really a revert your changes button. So if I select that trash can icon, you can see that when I hover over it, the option is to remove the customized version. All that does is reverts the email back to its original default state. So you can do that if you just want to scrap the changes that you've made and maybe start over. if the version that you're sending out isn't quite working, and we'll talk about testing in just a minute here. Now, if I scroll down, I can see that there are a handful of other checks that I have. And we have a nice special new icon here as well. If you're seeing this additional icon next to your green check mark, that is a second type of customization that has occurred with that email. That means that this email has a special couple, that email might have a from name that's been changed, the subject name been changed. So that means that the configuration of the email itself has changed. And the way we would get that little gear icon is by changing those individual email configuration settings using this wrench icon. And we're going to talk about that shortly. So these first two icons that you see here, those are going to give us those customization icons, those customization indicators that you see. And then, of course, we have our trash can icon. Now, some additional options that you might be seeing here. We have a little email icon next to all of our system emails. That little email icon allows you to send yourself a test version of that system email. Now, there are a couple of things to note about sending yourself a test version. First, you're just putting in your own email address, and all it's going to do is send you a test version, including all of the tags that are put in that particular email. You can make sure that your edits turn out okay. If you're inserting any pictures into that particular email, you can make sure that those appear in the way that you intend them to in any email client that you're opening that particular email in. And then we have our graph icon or our results icon. Now, for those of you who have access to, let's say, surveys or blast emailing, this results icon, familiar to you already. This results icon is going to let us see our system email tracking results. So we're going to see who's opened the email, when they open the email. It's a really neat new feature. So let's go back to the top. And before we start getting into actually making changes to emails, let's talk briefly about these buttons that we see at the top here. Send system tag test email. So system tags, we'll see when we're editing our emails, are pulling information from other areas of your site. So for example, when your emails are addressing each individual member by first name, that's a tag that's pulling the member's first name when the system gets ready to send that email. And it plops that first name right into the email. So it looks like you have painstakingly crafted this email individually for your users, but it's actually the system that's doing the work for you. And configure email defaults. Now, we've talked about configuring emails. We have this configure icon over here. We have our configure email defaults button. I want to talk about what we mean by editing emails versus configuring emails. Editing an email means that I want to select the edit icon and edit the content of the email. What is going in the body of the email? What's my message? Now, when I'm taking a look at a system email, a lot of this not making very much sense to me. These are just tags. All of the relevant information is going to get populated when the system actually sends the email. So right now, it doesn't look very, very helpful. But, perhaps I'm looking at this ad hoc form response status change form, and I want to, maybe add in a hi, or I want to add in maybe a little bit of a footer with some extra information. I can do that, or I can leave this as is. We see that we're working with a version of our content editor. Now, you've likely used the content editor in a lot of other spaces on your site. This is a very pared down version of our content editor. As you remember, these emails are those quick emails. They're not really using any fancy coding or any fun colors. These are not your blast emails that are being sent in full HTML. So we have some basic text editing properties here. We can add in a couple of extra things that might make your job a little bit easier. You can absolutely add links into system emails. This is our link builder. It's the same link builder that you're using all across your site. So when you want to send an email, or when you want that email going out about ad hoc forms, maybe you want an email going out about business memberships, If we take a look at our behind the screen here, we have some business membership emails. Maybe in the middle of that business membership email, you want to encourage your members to go in and edit their business directory listing. So you can link directly to the module, you can link to their member profile, you can link to a lot of different things. And then, of course, you have the ability to add in some images. So you can configure your logo to be present on those system emails. You can enter in additional images. Maybe you want to put a cute image of someone's pet at the bottom of emails, just as a little treat to some of your members. You can do anything that you'd like. Now, at the very top, we see this insert tag option. Now, this setup here, if you have configured blast emails, might be familiar to you. We do allow administrators, coordinators to insert tags into blast emails as well. The tag list is slightly different. Those tags can be anything from membership director's email to member's first name. It could include their member ID, their member number. It could include anything like that. When you're looking at tags for system emails, you're going to see the normal tags that you might see in any other spot or in blast emailing, where you have your name, membership director, all of these basic options. But then when you scroll down with any of these system emails, you have additional tags that are specific to the module that email is referring to, or the item that email is referring to. So these ad hoc form tags are going to be specific to that form. Now, they're not just tags that are specific to the email and the module. Like I said, they're tags that are specific to the form. That form title, going to pull the title from whatever form that particular email is referring to. If you have 6 different forms that you've sent out for 6 different reasons, that email will pull the right title every time. You'll get the right date, you'll get the right status. And the contact name and email, we're going to talk about those specific contacts a little bit more, but your contact for that ad hoc form is the contact that you added when you created the form. So we talked a little bit about contacts at the top of our webinar. Those contacts are going to be configured on an item by item basis. Each event has their own contact. Each survey has its own contact. So all of those system emails can not only pull your basic information, membership director, data protection officer, treasurer, but they can also pull those specific contacts so that you're not just contacting the membership director because you don't know who to contact. You can get in touch with the right person. Now, we're seeing that we have some tags that are already in our system email. Now, a tag consists of the name of the tag. That is something that is configured by ClubExpress. Do not touch those tags. If you attempt to make an edit to perhaps the name, maybe you think that, well, if I say contact name and I see contact email, what if I put contact phone number? You can't create your own tags. The tags that we have created, there are a lot, those require really complex and extensive programming on the back end. So they're not something that you can just create on the fly and hope the system knows what you're talking about. What likely will happen, it won't necessarily break anything, but it's not going to give you the desired results. And of course, that's why we give you the option to test your emails to make sure that everything appears the way you would expect it to. And you'll see that wrapped around the name of that tag, we have the 2 tildes at either end. Tilde is the formal name. I call them squigglies. So we have our squigglies, and then we have our tag that we've inserted here. Now, if you're looking to insert a tag, the process exact same as in blast emails. So if I wanted to maybe add a little bit of an introduction, hi there. And I might decide that I want to use my, let's say I can use that's going to be the club name. But if I wanted to insert, let's say maybe my membership director's email. Hi there. And if you have questions, you can contact the membership director. Now, if I select my membership director email and I place my cursor right underneath my first line and I select insert tag, I can do a couple of things here. I can insert this as a link because this is an email address. or I can insert it as text where it's just going to be the text of the email address as opposed to a live link that's getting inserted in the email. Go ahead and insert my tag. And now we have our membership director email. And you can kind of see that because we've submitted it as we've configured the tag as a link, it even shows up in our preview as a link. So we know that that's what it's going to be sent out as. Now I can go ahead and save these changes. I can select reload, and that is going to completely remove any of the changes that I had made, and I don't have to save anything. And now I can go back into that email and start editing that email once more. Now, I'll go ahead and insert a tag just so we can see the change that happens when I select insert tag. I'll go ahead and insert that as an email address one more time. And I can go ahead and save these changes. And now I have that green check mark right there. Now, that's editing a system email, and that is the body of the email. Let's talk about configuring our emails. Now, when we talk about configuration, we're talking about this wrench icon, and we're also talking about this button at the top here to configure our email defaults. First off, let's talk about what we mean when we say defaults. When I select configure email defaults, I'm getting my from address and name, as well as my reply address and reply name. It's the from and the to. Those are the things that you are editing when it comes to your blanket email defaults. Now, if I go back and take a look at my ad hoc form response status and I select the wrench icon, I have a couple of additional options. I can change the subject. Ad hoc form response status change, that is a subject that is not going to mean very much to a lot of people. Maybe you want to pare that down a little bit. Maybe you just want to change it so that it, matches maybe phrasing that your particular organization uses. Remember that, and this is going slightly off topic, but remember that you do have the ability to change the names of your modules in your website's menu, on your control panel. So when you're thinking about the fact that you may have changed the name of a module, you might want to pop in, just see what that system email says, because that could cause a slight amount of confusion, maybe even for your members. If you're not calling something a business directory and you're instead calling it your sponsor catalog, and someone gets an email about a business directory, they're not going to know what that is. So consider maybe editing the subject lines of your system emails to match what you have across your website. It can also help future administrators and coordinators and future officers when they're getting those system notifications that they know what they're looking at, so that it's matching, again, the name that you're using for that feature or that module across your website. So you can edit the subject. You can change the from address and name, and we're going to talk about those, the reply address and name, and if you choose to track the emails that are being opened, check that little box right there. Now, let's take a look at one of the emails that has already been customized. And I want to talk about individual customization versus that blanket or default customization. So our new member confirmation self-entered, that's already been customized. We can see confirmation of that with that icon. If I select that configure email option, I don't have any specific items configured there, but I have added the ability to track my open emails. And on the right-hand side, I can see that little tracking or results icon. And if we scroll down, we have a couple more here. So if I select this configure icon, I see the same, and I have my tracked opens. And if I select that results icon, because I'm tracking those opens, I can see a full list. And again, this is a demo site, so we may not have a lot of emails that are being sent out on a regular basis, but this is what your list of system emails is going to look like if you choose to track your emails. So you can search through if you know that someone in your organization would have received an email in the last week. You can filter your search results by that particular date. And we can see when that person has opened that email. Now, if your recipient has not opened the email, you'll certainly see that it's been sent to them, but you will see in the opened column, it'll just say no. So on the left-hand side, we can see when the email was sent and when it was opened. Looks like Colleen opened hers pretty quickly, and looks like Johnny Test opened his about 20 minutes later. And those are our system email tracking features. Now, you don't have the ability to resend a system email if someone has not opened it. So keeping that in mind, it's something that has been brought up before. It's certainly something that we can maybe add to our developer list, but right now it's not something that you have the ability to do. If you are using blast emailing, you know that we've recently added the ability to resend emails to those who haven't opened them. So we don't have that option with our system emails as of yet. And now that we've talked about configuring those individual defaults, now you'll notice again, every system email has that configure option. Those are for that specific email. The email defaults are going to cover all of your emails. So if you want to change the from address for every single system email, go ahead and do that in email defaults. If you want to change the system email from address for most, or let's say maybe half of the emails, go ahead and put that in there anyway, because anytime you make a change to an individual email on top of the defaults, that individual change will override the email defaults that you've set up. So like I said, if more often than not, these emails are going to be coming from the same address and you just have a handful that need to be changed, go ahead, save yourself some time, configure your email defaults, and then go in and make those individual configuration changes. Now, some really important things that I want to point out, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more. We'll go over it again when we talk about our frequently asked questions. There are two different ways that your organization might be handling emails. You either manage your own domain or we manage your email accounts for you. If we are managing your email accounts for you, or if you have email accounts with us, you have the ability to enter in your from address and name, and both of those are going to appear just fine. If you are handling your own email accounts, you have your own domain, and we as in ClubExpress, are not handling email for you, you can still take advantage of these. However, you have one extra step that you have to include, and that is providing us with what's called an SPF record. And again, we're going to talk about that in a lot more detail. It is not something that you have to pay to provide us. It's something that our support team can help you provide us with. But what it essentially does is it lets us, ClubExpress, send emails on your behalf using your domain. So it's a special type of permission that you grant us to be able to send emails on your behalf so that we can use your domain, which you own. So again, we'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. We'll go into a little bit more detail and talk about those SPF records to make sure we get you off on the right track here. Now, we've talked about so far, looking at our screen here, what all of these icons mean. We've gone through customizing the body of the email using that edit option. We have taken a quick look at customizing those configurations, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute by selecting that configure icon. We did talk about testing, and I want to talk about that just a little bit more now. Each of these individual system emails has a send test email option. So when I click that, you'll see that, again, I have that option to just put in my email address, and it sends a test version of that email. Now, there are a couple of things to note about test versions of emails, and to help showcase that, I've sent myself a test email. I'm going to pull this over here. Someone shout at me if you can't see the email. So I'll go ahead and make this just a little bit bigger here. Now, this is a test email that I sent myself from our demo club. Now, our demo club does not have an email domain that has been set up. So all of our demo club emails, while they might have, a a name in the send line, it's also going to have that mail2.clubexpress.com. That's the portion that most people want to get rid of, which is why we would need that SPF record. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. So stick around, hang tight. Here's our test email. We can see right at the top, the subject is denoting that this is a ClubExpress test email. It's my new member confirmation converted. So this email is going out when we have a non-member in our database and we've converted that non-member into a member. So this is a notification that gets sent to the member to say, hi, we're super glad to have you. Here's some basic information about your membership. I made a couple of changes to this, so I just wanted to see how these tags were going to turn out. Now, there are some items here that kind of just look like they're maybe not making a ton of sense, or these are just some basic items that are getting pulled to show where that tagged information is going to sit in that email. You'll also see that this email came from ClubExpress support. So our tests are going to come from ClubExpress support. Even if I had edited the from name and address for a test email, that is not going to come through in the test. Your from name, your from address, those are not going to appear in your test email. Your test emails are always going to come from ClubExpress support. So a good way to potentially test an email, if you want to make sure that that send is coming through correctly or that from name is coming through correctly, would be to potentially see if you could generate one of those actions on your own. At the very bottom, we have a couple of tags that don't have any data populated in them. So that's going to be information that gets populated based on the email when it's actually being sent. So while your test will help you with a lot, some of that information needs the actual item in order to populate itself. So we can't populate necessarily a lot of dummy information into those test emails, but the test email is going to give you a really good idea of, again, how your email is going to appear, what it's going to look like in your different clients. Now, if we talk a little bit more about some testing features that we've seen here, we also have this button to send a system tag test email. Now, with the system tag test email, exit out of this and I'll just pull up our quick little cheat sheet here. Now, with our system tag test email, on the right-hand side, we have just a quick list of what that looks like. Your system tag test email shows all of the main contacts that are used in your emails, your treasurer, your data protection officer, your president, your membership director, all of the basics. It shows what contact information is going to be shown for that person. So when we configure our contacts and titles, you'll remember that you decide which email address is being used for that particular contact. Are you using the email address that goes with the title, or are you using that member's personal email address that they entered into their member profile? If you feel like you're a little bit lost right now, don't worry. We have several webinars and tutorials that talk about managing contacts and titles. We just did one relatively recently, so it's nice and fresh, has up-to-date information. Go ahead and check that out. It pairs very well with our system email webinar. So making sure that you have all of that information ready to go is not just important for your system emails, it's important for your contact information on your website. So a really, really great rule of thumb is to double check that you have all of those titles ready to go. Now, if we're going to take a look at all of our contacts and titles, and we're taking a look at each one that's entered into an email, they're entered in different places. And a lot of times we may not have information for some of those email addresses. So what you might end up seeing if you haven't configured all of your contacts and titles is that your membership director's information gets inserted in a lot of emails. That's a default that we might use in some instances. If there isn't contact information for a specific item, or if there isn't contact information listed, we might insert the membership director's email address by default. So it's really important, if you are intending to really, really bolster communication within your organization and you want to streamline who gets contacted for what, pay attention to those contacts that you're configuring. I'm going to be honest, when I am making a lot of things for testing purposes, I skip right over the contact field. I don't necessarily need to focus on that. But if you're looking to create an actual form that you want people to use, for example, our training department, we create a lot of surveys that we send out to people, and we set ourselves up as the contact for the survey so that we know we get a system notification when someone answers that survey or submits their results. So making sure that you have all of those tags ready to go, all of the information is correct, is something that you absolutely should be doing. And not just once, not just when you start your website, but as time goes on, because of course your membership director is going to change, your president's going to change. Make sure that you keep all of that information up to date. So let's see. We'll go right back into our control panel, and we've talked a lot about tags, and we've talked about a lot about those contacts and titles. And without going into the weeds a little bit here, I want to just quickly point out where you're going to find those. In our club tab, it's for our demo club, it is the club tab. For other organizations, that tab might be renamed to match your organization type. At the bottom of the club tab, you'll see titles. So that's where you're able to configure all of the titles within your organization. And then you go ahead up to contacts, contact us, and you match those titles with a person. So again, we have a lot of webinars and tutorials that talk about contacts and titles, so I won't get into those now. But what I do want to do is take a look at a couple of other spots on our site to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about when we say those specific contacts. So if I'm just in our events manager here, and I'm not going to create an event, all we're doing is just kind of taking a look at where we might be inserting some of our titles. So if I take a look at, let's say, a single activity, and I will choose a fun activity at night, and I go ahead and I select this edit icon. On the left-hand side, I see all of that basic event information that I'm configuring. And if I select event contacts, and I go ahead and hit that edit icon, there we go. There's all of my contacts. Now, we see that we have some notifications that we can configure. Again, these are system notifications. So when we talk about system emails versus system notifications, these notifications are configured by an administrator. Who are we notifying when someone registers? Well, it looks like a couple of people are getting notified on registration. No one's getting notified on cancellation. Again, those are system notifications that are being sent out. And you'll see the exact same type of contact field in surveys, ad hoc forms, in a lot of other spaces on your site. So start kind of paying attention to that system tag, that contact feature that you might be seeing across your site. Now, let's talk about some of these FAQs that have likely come up in our chat. And I know that the questions have likely been coming in at a feverish pace. Can I turn off individual system emails? No, you cannot. These questions might be just a list of disappointments for some people. So I apologize for that in advance. But let's talk about them a little bit. So can you turn off individual system emails? No. As I mentioned before, a lot of those emails, a lot of them are based on transactions. They're based on a lot of information. You can't just go in and turn off individual emails, and some of them actually can't be turned off, period. So we'll go over which emails can't be turned off at all and what it means to turn off system emails in just a moment. Let's finish up some of these other FAQs. How can I display my club email address as the from name? So as I mentioned, either ClubExpress, we need to be handling your domain, or you have to provide us with an SPF record. So what is it? I'll be honest with you, when ClubExpress deployed this change, I also had to do a little research. So An SPF record is, like I said, just a special type of permission that you would grant ClubExpress to send emails from your domain on your behalf. The reason that you have to provide this to us is because, well, you don't want just anyone being able to send emails from your domain. That's a huge no-no, and that is asking for a virus. So we ask that you just give us that special permission, which you're required to do if you want us to be sending those emails on your behalf. And then all of your emails will have that really great email address. You'll have that from name. You'll have that from address. There won't be any confusion as to who the email is coming from. And it puts your users a lot more at ease. Can more than one officer receive a system notification? Not at this time. We get that request a lot, and it is certainly on the list for our developers. But as of right now, only one officer designated is going to receive that system notification. So when we talk about that, we mean, can you have two membership directors listed on your site? You may not have two membership directors, but maybe you have your membership director and then you have your membership coordinator, and they both need to see these emails coming through. Unfortunately, the system's only going to send it to one person, and it's typically the first person that you associate with that title. What we suggest, of course, is just setting up a quick little rule within Outlook or Gmail or whatever email client you happen to be using to maybe auto forward those emails to an additional person or an additional group of people. What are contact tags and how do I edit them? Well, we went over contact tags. Those are specific to the item, the form, the survey, the event, the volunteering opportunity, the classified ad. Those are configured within those individual items. So they're not configured in a special place like contacts or titles. They're configured within the individual item itself. And can I create new tags? No, you cannot. Email tags are, like I said, really complex. They require coding on the back end. It's not something that you can just invent. It would be really fun if it was, but unfortunately, that's not how the tags work. So you can certainly try, but your email tags, like I said, even in your test, they're not going to come out great for you. And I mentioned turning off those system emails. Now, you can't turn off individual system emails. You cannot turn off individual system emails, but you can ask us to turn all system emails off. That might seem like a lot. You might be looking at the list thinking, well, I want some of them, but I don't want all of them. Unfortunately, it's an all or nothing type of deal here. Now, if you decide that you do want to turn off system emails, there are some emails that will still come through. So starting at the top of the list, in addition to, of course, transaction-related emails, which will always be sent, forum emails when the member has subscribed to a forum. Those emails will always be sent, especially if the member has opted to subscribe themselves. Event auto reminders, those emails are going to be sent to the member, regardless of whether or not member and non-member, regardless of whether or not they've opted out of emails, and regardless of whether or not you've turned off system emails, because those emails potentially are related to something that the members potentially purchased or registered for. So it's transaction-based. Volunteering auto reminders, those emails are also not turned off. And for aging in place villages, service request auto reminders. So those really important reminder emails are going to be sent out, in addition to, of course, renewal reminders. Now, you have the ability to separately disable your renewal reminders from within your renewal reminders settings. And of course, we have several tutorials and webinars that talk about renewal and expiration settings across your website. So if you are interested in learning a little bit more about how those automatic renewal reminders are configured, we encourage you to check out those webinars. And if anyone thought I could not talk about system emails for an hour, I even surprised myself. Devin, how are we doing on questions?
We are doing Very well. The chat has been
Good,
very, very lively.
good.
I you may have seen me struggling to keep up with some of the questions, but
I
I'll
saw
go ahead
there's
and
so many questions.
I'll hand some off to you for now. One of the first questions was, can you use tags to customize like things like subject lines and the email addresses? And the short answer is no. There's not a tag option in the configuration.
It is on our developers list. So that actually came up in our version announcement, I think.
And another question was, can you use forwarding addresses as the from/reply emails?
That is a great question.
And
That
you can.
okay.
That way, if it's coming, so if you have like the ClubExpress email forwarding set up, and let's say you have, president at your organization.com, you can set that as both your from address and or your reply address. And then if someone replies to it, then it would just get forwarded as a normal email forwarding would take place.
Okay.
There was a question I remember earlier. Someone was asking about paragraphing and how we manage paragraphs, be it a carriage return or a paragraph symbol. We use just simple CSS line breaks. That might be over some people's heads, but if you look in the HTML, it's separated by just a what's the double caret with a BR in the middle. That's where our line breaks are. You can just mimic that by hitting the return key. You don't need to use like the paragraph icon or a carriage return specifically. You can just use normal line breaks. And did you, I can't remember, Sam, did you address like collective tags, things that have multiple bits of information inside one larger tag?
I did not, but I can certainly pull one of those up. Do you have an email in mind that has those?
I think our event registration confirmation might. I can't remember which ones do and do not have the. So yeah, those would be.
So we most have all of these here.
Yeah, most of our like multi-point collective tags are just individual tags within a table. I don't think we have any tags that pull multiple fields simultaneously. I think they all pull individual fields. I think the only example that might pull larger fields is things like for our organizations that are our villages that have like service tags. It'll pull larger amounts of information, but it's still just pulling from one larger field. It's not going to pull multiple data points into one tag. So specifically here, someone asked, what does additional info pull? That's a really good question. So anytime you see additional info, that's usually just a details or a description tag. So in additional info for events specifically, it's looking at the additional info section in the event configuration. So if you go to any event and you
sorry, while you were talking, I pulled up some of the village emails so we can see, and for any village folks who might be on the call, there are dozens of additional system emails that you might have that are specific to your villages. And then you also have the same system emails that we've been referring to. So if we talk about, as Devin was mentioning, our event registration confirmation, same email that you're working with.
Yeah. And so additional info is pulling, there's a field in event configuration called emails. And when you click on that section in event configuration, there's a section called additional info, and anything you type in there would fill in that tag. And if it's left blank, then that section would just not be there in the actual email. Oh, Roger, you are correct. Apologies. I will correct myself. There is a section called provider info in some of our service emails, and that is a collective that does have multiple fields within one tag. I did forget about that one. So provider info is going to have multiple pieces of information, like I think it's just email address, their first name, their last name, and their phone number. What those contain is actually a good question. I don't know if we have a resource that specifically says that, but adding that to our wish list for maybe a little document on
our help system.
Yeah, sure. Would probably be something that we could work on. So we'll
yes, that is a wonderful suggestion, and we'll certainly add that to the help system. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so we'll I had completely spaced on that. So we'll get a description of some of our multi-tag tags and get those kind of laid out. Someone asked if we can go down the list and describe when each system email goes out. We could, but we'd be here for about 7.5 hours. Each system email
I'm free today.
Each system email has a little bit of gray text below it, letting you know in what scenario that email goes out. So in most cases, they're pretty plain. It'll say like when a member renews, they get the renewal email, or when a transaction is processed, they get the transaction confirmation email. They're mostly either self-explanatory, or they have the gray text below it to let you know why that email would be sent out. So that's just kind of, it's just a bit of reading to figure that out. All right, we'll give it just a minute here, but we're closing in on our hour. And I think our questions have slowed down just a little bit. Daryl did point out, this is a really good point. Right now, when you send a test email, it does not listen to your email configuration. So if you change your from address and you send a test email, at the moment, they're not going to come. It'll come from support@clubexpress.com instead of coming from the email configuration you've set up. That is something that we are working on. And it's currently on our wish list to update that as well. But right now, that's the way that those test emails are coming. So we'll be working on addressing that.
So if you see something from Club Express support, it's just going to be our little test. And it'll also have that test notation in the subject line, so you know that you are sending yourself a test.
Yeah. It'll modify your subject for your email as well to let you know it's a test email, not a actual functional system email.
Our blast emails do that as well, which is nice because I personally always get nervous. Did I send that as a test or did I send it to everyone? And so that big capital test at the beginning of the email is very comforting to me.
Yeah. And someone did point out, like, a lot of these emails look a bit redundant. That's very true. A lot of these emails, you'll see that there's, 4 different event registration confirmations. But that's because there are different ways that they can be entered. So some of them will say like event confirmation, immediate payment, and event confirmation, no fee. Those are both very similar event confirmation emails, but one of them has an added bit of information about if immediate payment is required, and the other one has no information about payment because the email has no fee. They both are sent out whenever someone registers for an email, and they are both confirmations about that event, but they are slightly different because they are sent under different circumstances based on event configuration. So again, if you have no fee tied to your event, then obviously there doesn't need to be payment information involved in that event. Or if you are requiring immediate payment, we want to make sure that people know once they get that confirmation, it's just a reminder that, hey, you have 30 minutes to, complete payment.
And if anyone is wondering, that is certainly something that you can adjust when you're configuring the event. There's an option on registration and fees that asks you if you want to require immediate payment. So that's a little bonus nugget for you in this webinar.
And we've got a question about including logic. So like if questions, like if a field is blank, then choose this field. At the moment, we don't. That is a pretty good question, but I know that we try to keep system emails as simple to modify as possible, but perhaps one day we'll have like an advanced modification option. That's something we can add to our ever-growing wish list of future improvements.
These are good suggestions, though. I'm excited that the help system got. Usually it's just suggestions that we forward to the developers. So now we have one too.
Yeah, we do. Our team is the one that manages the help system. So
yes, it is.
Creating a list of what those compound tags include will fall in our lap. So we'll take care of that. All right, let's see. How can so someone asked, how can a member profile tag be included in renewal notices? I think right now the renewal notices only link to, they have a very special link that points them to the renewal process. It doesn't point them to their member profile. I don't believe we have a tag at the moment that points to a member's profile.
We can actually, I believe it might be one of the quick links that you can add. Yes. So if you want to insert a link to your member profile, and we do a couple returns and enter in, hey, don't forget to adjust your profile or double check your information, go ahead and click on insert link. And what you want is a quick link. These are little links that can link to just a bunch of different places on your site that you don't necessarily have a link built to. So the login page, we can link to the profile. We can link to any other quick links that you may have configured as well. So we can go ahead and link to the profile and insert that in, and it takes the user to their specific member profile.
Well, I learned something.
Oh my gosh, yay.
All right. Well, I think we've gone a little bit over time. Let's see.
This was a nice, hefty topic. Thanks
Yeah.
for all the really good questions. It always makes us feel really, really good about our topic when we get this many questions, because we know that this was information that was needed by people.
All right. We got a question. What is the who, where in the link builder? That's one that I don't know. Sam, do you know that?
Those may actually be quick links that, yeah. So those are some quick links that may have been created. This is another demo club. So that isn't a quick link that was made by the system, like the profile quick link is.
You can create your own quick links. And so what we're seeing here is quick links that have been created on this demo site. That's not a standard quick link.
You create your quick links under website and menus. If we scroll down, or is it, that doesn't seem right. Am I doing this wrong? I think I'm doing this wrong. Domain names,
domain
quick
names,
links, yes. Yeah. So you can create external links in the menu feature, and that's specific to menus. My apologies. Domain names and quick links. And again, we're on a Village demo site, but this is the same for every other site that you have. They have the same features. So we have our quick links that are system generated, and that includes just some basic options. And you can also add additional quick links that provide that, like when we say go to clubexpress.com/calendar, that's actually a quick link that we've created on our site. And it allows us to say clubexpress.com/calendar instead of clubexpress.com/ID/page ID.
Yeah. So Helen asked the question, how do we know which system email a member will get when an admin changes a member's account? I don't believe there is a system email for administrators making changes to a member's account unless they are, I think, either changing their chapter or adding an additional member. If they change something like, their member number or, their mailing address, they're not going to get a notice about that. Otherwise, I think they get something called like a mid-year change notice is in this list.
So anytime you're wondering about what an administrator does that might generate an email, we have a lot of entered by admin notations. So if you're looking for what an admin does that might generate a system email, we've highlighted whenever that occurs. So whether it's the member doing something or the administrator doing something, that'll appear in the system email title or description.
Yeah, you can also just use like Control F and then type in admin, and it'll highlight all of the emails that are in response to admin actions. I think Control F works in just about every browser. So
it's my favorite tool.
Mine too. All righty, I think we're there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for everyone joining us today. We appreciate your attendance, your feedback, your questions, your answers. We are so grateful that you joined us today. Really excited about this topic. Of course, don't forget to check out our upcoming topics. We are going to be talking about one of our extra cost features that we haven't talked about yet, our guest passes module pretty soon. We're also going to be talking about Google Analytics. We have a lot of additional content that we're going to be talking about over the next couple of months. Our developers are working on really interesting things. We have tons of features that we can talk about. We're going to be revisiting some things. So be sure to check out our calendar. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. This particular webinar is chock full of a lot of great info, especially in that Q&A. So if you missed anything, if you want to review anything, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get notified as soon as we post this particular recording. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you in the next webinar. Bye, everyone.